2 years ago, I was miserable. I was on my third credit card cash advance at a casino, and I had just spent the last 11 hours gambling. I'm sitting there now, and it's the 12th hour. I'm counting the money that I have left and realizing that I really messed up. This was my rock bottom moment. My name's Rob, and I'm recovering from a gambling addiction. It isn't everyone that ends up in a Gamblers Anonymous program and in the recovery process for addiction. But for some of us, millions of us, to be honest, this is how things go. And at first, it sucked, and I wasn't doing great. But I want to share my story of how I even got into that position, and then once I was at rock bottom, what I did to move on and live a better life, because life is good, and it can be good for you too. Let me tell you why. So I got started with gambling through daily fantasy sports. And when I was growing up near the Philadelphia area, every single event that we had with family and with friends was centered around a game of some kind. Maybe hangouts would start at 7 o'clock because that's when the Sixers game started or the Phillies started. Or a family event might start at 1 o'clock because that's when the Eagles kicked off. It was constantly on my mind to look at sports, watch sports, know statistics, know who was on the team, what was going on. It was part of my life. It was how I grew up. So when I was 18 and I found out that, hey, you can make money using this knowledge, it was too good to be true. Literally, it was too good to be true. So I thought, man, the more I know about sports, the more money I'll make gambling on it through these fantasy sports contests. And I can do it at 18 completely legally. It wasn't long before I started to have some success, and I felt great about it. And it was going to keep getting better as I continued to learn more about the sports. And so very quickly after that, I wanted the results to happen faster. That was just a couple of months in. I couldn't wait for the entire slate of games to be over. I needed to have my results after a half of a game, after a quarter of a game. And so I moved over to sports betting on online sites like Bovada. I was doing it legally. It was happening in this weird legal gray area, and I was 19 at this point. I didn't end up winning any money, so there's nothing to come after me for. I actually ended up losing a lot, and it got to the point where I actually lost enough money that I went into debt, where I had to get 2 jobs to pay off that debt to the bookie. And the weird thing was, the whole time I was doing it, I thought, man, I can get out of this with one big win. And then eventually, it got so bad, so deep into debt for the time, that one win wasn't going to solve the problem. So yeah, I ended up working a second job that summer between the ages of 19 and going into being 20. That would repeat itself 4 more times before I was 21. And I decided I needed a change. I moved to Australia to do a semester abroad. Little did I know that Australia has the worst rates of gambling addiction and worst losses per capita in the world. And so there was gambling everywhere. I found out very quickly, and within just a couple of hours of landing, taking a 23-hour flight across the world, I was in a poker room playing cards. I didn't sleep. I went straight to the casino. Because now, hey, I was of legal age to be in the building. I loved to gamble, so it seemed like a no-brainer. But that would continue for months. However, they sent us home a lot earlier than we had anticipated because it was 2020. And you know what happened in 2020? What also happened in 2020 was that I qualified for unemployment. And if you're familiar with what unemployment was like during that time in the United States, there was a giant bonus thrown on top of every weekly unemployment check. Giant to me at the time because I was supposed to be getting $30 of unemployment. And then suddenly I was getting $630 every week, working 0 hours. I can tell you that none of that is left. But for the 4 to 5 months after I got back from Australia, I was playing poker every single day, and I was betting on games like Korean baseball because that was the only thing that was on. I was also playing casino games at the time, so I was just full-fledged gambling all day long, every single day. And I estimate that I was gambling for about 6 to 8 hours per day. Now, this would go on until I was 22, and the lockdown started to ease, and everything seemed to be getting better. Then I thought, hey, this gambling stuff might not be working out for me. Maybe I should take a break. And I took, a couple days here and there. But I'd always have a massive compulsion to go back and keep playing. And boy, did I keep playing. Basically, I'd say, hey, I'm going to stop. And then I'd try to stop for a couple days. A couple days would go by. I'd place a small bet. The small bet would lose. Then I'd place a bigger bet to try to get it back. And it would spiral into a debt snowball. Now, at this point, I went into debt again, to the point where I had to get a second job. This would be the second to last time it would happen, but it was on February 8th of 2022. I got myself into a support group meeting that day, and things felt better. for a while. But as time would go on, months would pass, I'd realize that I was feeling pretty empty. I wasn't gambling, but I wasn't accomplishing anything. I didn't have any gambling debts anymore, but I didn't feel good or worthy or like I was doing anything with my life. And so November the 12th of 2022 came around, and I felt a massive temptation to gamble that morning. I was watching an Eagles game, right back to my roots. I realized that now I had moved to Philadelphia. I realized I never did the self-exclusions in Pennsylvania. So in the United States, if you want to quit gambling, you have to exclude state by state. There's no national registry of a gambling self-exclusion, which is a national registry of telling the casinos you don't want to play there. When I realized that, it was about an hour before I had placed a sports bet on the Eagles game. And the worst thing happened. I won. Big. And I felt great about it. But I also felt guilty because I had just taken about 8 months away from gambling. I built this community of people in recovery, and I was feeling like crap because I went back on my word to them and myself. But I also won money. And so I wanted to get that money out as quickly as possible and enjoy it without feeling guilty, and then get myself into recovery again. However, on this specific sportsbook, there was a delay period on the withdrawal, so I had to wait 24 hours. A gambling addict like myself, I wasn't very patient, still am not very patient. And so I drove to the casino to argue with them at the cashier's desk, and I tried to get it in cash there, same policy. So now, I had just a few hours clean. I was at a casino for the first time in almost a year. What do you think happened? Numerous cash advances and debt. In one 12-hour sitting, I created that debt that would take me 6 months working 70 hours a week to pay off as a financial analyst, a real big boy full-time job, and a bartender that I picked up to try to cover the difference. And I realized this shit is terrible. It took me 6 years to realize that it was not going to ever go differently for me. Because when you're a problem gambler, you can't stop after one bet, you keep going. So even if you had that win like I had that morning, it was never going to be enough. All wins are future losses, especially when you're a problem gambler, because it happens faster. I got myself back into recovery, and this is where the story takes a turn for the positive. I started to see this person in the meeting stop showing up, and I gave him a call and I said, why? Bad situation, went back to gambling. I said, hey man, look, I don't know what the solution is at this point, but I know it's not gambling because I just did that and now I'm working 70 hours this week. And he told me, hey, maybe you're right, I'll come back in. From then till now, he's doing amazing. And that was the first time in a very long time that I felt good about myself. So good about something I did or said, because it wasn't selfish for the first time in a long time. And I thought, hey, I can do that again. And so I did. Now we have these videos here. I turned my life around by finding a passion, a purpose, a meaning. And it wasn't overnight. My videos in the beginning sucked. You guys, please don't go and look at them. They're really terrible. But as time would go on and I'd improve and I'd see people actually getting benefit out of the words out of my mouth, I wanted to keep doing that, and I scaled it. And now I'm able to do this full time without charging you a single dollar. It's a beautiful thing. And the way that I've really turned my life around is focusing on that purpose alongside my recovery that I was doing before. My recovery process takes on 4 steps. And if you're interested in knowing what those 4 steps are, then check out this video I made about how I quit gambling. And until then, thank you for listening, and let's keep getting better together, one day at a time.